So today I am joined with Dr. Arlette Perry, professor in the Department of Kinesiology and Sports Sciences at the University of Miami and director of the Laboratory of Clinical and Applied Physiology. Dr. Perry has devoted her career to understanding how exercise transforms the body and the brain, and she holds a PhD in exercise physiology from NYU and has spent decades leading research on cardiovascular fitness, obesity prevention, women's health, and youth wellness. Her work bridges science and practical application, helping people understand what is truly meant to be fit, not just in appearance, but in function, energy, and longevity. In her university lab, she measures the physiology of movement, how the heart adapts, how the lungs respond, how metabolism changes with effort, and she brings that knowledge into real-world programs that improve quality of life across generations. She's also a passionate educator, mentoring students, designing community initiatives like the Think program, and redefining how we think about wellness through education, intention, and behavior. I invited Dr. Perry on The Healthy Mind because her work represents one of the essential pillars of health, movement and exercise. So with this framework of the healthy mind, the brain and the mind are the foundation of every pillar. So the way we talk about the healthy mind is that we have 5 pillars of health. The foundation is brain health, mind health, and emotional health all in one. And all of the other pillars, which is nutrition, exercise, sleep, fall in place. And then the last pillar, believe it or not, is physical health and longevity, which is the product of all the other 4 pillars. Dr. Perry, it's an honor to have you here today.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Thank you for accepting without any hesitation. So, very briefly for our listeners, what does it mean by the word fitness? What does it mean to you scientifically and personally?
Fitness is a broad term. It encompasses, as you intimated, many different elements. There's the physical aspect, which is broad. There is aerobic fitness, like the Energizer Bunny, keep going and going and going. There's the strength-related fitness, which is the maximum force in one effort that you can produce. There are other kinds of fitness like agility, the ability to change directions quickly. There's another type of fitness, which is flexibility and range of motion, which is your ability to take your range of motion through the absolute maximum range. There's power. That's your ability to produce force quickly as possible. Okay, and also there's what we call a combination. It's a muscular fitness, but it's a combination of muscular strength and muscular endurance. So muscular strength is all out, one effort. Muscular endurance is like, can you do 10 crunches? Can you do 20 crunches? Can you do 50 crunches? Where you can go over and over and over again. So these are the different elements of physical fitness, and they are very much related to health variables like blood pressure, cholesterol, okay, and also mind health, which is something that I know you're very big into.
Okay, so you just brought up so much with kinesiology / fitness. Now, this is what I find fascinating to me also, is that when people think of exercise, they think of one thing, and think of fitness, they think of another thing. And there's so much about it now. This is great because of the internet and because of the movement. You're seeing so much fitness, exercise programs. Now, the question is, you just brought up so much. How do you put all of that into your life? Because you just hit so many different things. And I feel that as myself and patients, they don't know when to run, when to walk, when to weightlift, when to swim, when to stretch, when to perform yoga, meditation, whatever. There's so much you can do. So is it goals? What is it? How do you, okay.
I think I can help.
Help me navigate.
Yeah, I think I can help.
Yes.
I think what it translates into, all these different elements, is finding the one that you do, that you can continue doing, okay, that works for you, okay? So if you enjoy playing tennis, if that works for you, then play your tennis. If you enjoy swimming, that works for you, do your swimming. What is effective is what you can do. It's kind of like, what's a good diet? There's 1,000 diets. It's the same thing. Which one do you choose? Choose the one that you can stick to. That's the one that works for you. So that's the good one.
So you're talking about sustainability.
Yes.
And something you're going to enjoy. And okay. Now, the question is, though, is when you talk about sustainability, the other thing is, do you think body habitus also? Because when I look at certain people, I feel by looking at different types of patients of mine, what they could possibly do, how their bodies are going to handle it. Do you think people should focus also possibly on somewhat, not obesity, but just their body habitus of what they should exercise? Because when I look at exercise, I'm not only looking at it as enjoyment, also as longevity. And I see a lot of people, as they get older, as they age, developing arthritic problems, things like that. So take me through that. Like, do you think that there's some element of picking a fitness based on what your body habitus is?
Yes. Okay. I think certain body types and body types of composition dictate what you would gravitate toward. What would you be more likely to do? However, I think the best is the combination. The research shows that, for example, if you are slight of build, thinner, lighter, you may gravitate more to aerobic type of exercise that you can sustain for an extended period of time. If you're larger, bigger, and stronger, you might go more toward resistance training because you can lift more weights. You're stronger. You can do that. But the research shows the best is the combination. Right. So that's hard because you have to combine a little bit of your aerobic training with your resistance training. And that, fills up your schedule a little bit more. So you have to make certain decisions. The best thing to do is to do a little bit of both. So, for example, we test the football players. They're weightlifters. They're tremendously powerful. However, they do get tired. They do get fatigued. They do get worn down. So the way they do it is they time it appropriately. Before the season, they build a good aerobic base. During the season, they're resistance training. They're getting stronger because they have to handle other 300-pound strong men just like them. So they have to have that background. But if you have the good aerobic base, it's easier for you to build from there. And they keep the aerobic base. They do it once or twice a week, but they mainly focus on what is required of their sport. So let's take the average person. What's required of them? Well, let's take an older woman. Older women who maybe is struggling a little bit, maybe not as much muscle mass, has a little bit of what we call sarcopenia, which is slow weaknesses of the muscle, really loss of strength. So maybe that particular woman would be best off doing this combination of resistance training exercise along with some aerobic exercise. And if there's a problem with osteoporosis, if there's a problem with bone deterioration, maybe focus more on the resistance aspect and then supplement with aerobic training. So I think it's the timing and the distribution of the exercise which takes a little thinking through, or what can you effectively do if you need to do both. And then you have the person that gets winded and tired and is heavy and is more overweight. Well, we know that aerobic exercise, or caloric expenditure, I should say, is distance dependent. So basically, if you need to burn the calories, if you need to lose the weight, you should focus more on the aerobic portion of the exercise, because per unit time, that burns the most amount of calories. So it's a matter of choosing what is best for your body type, which is a very good question, and focusing primarily on that element, but supplementing with the other element when you can.
So that's great. So you're talking now more about balance, for sustainability and balance. And so is fitness about lean muscle? Is it about fat loss? Is there something deeper in the body's physiology?
Well, we break it down. We have this broad term called physical fitness. But that broad term physical fitness is divided into what we call health-related fitness and skill-related fitness.
Okay.
So health-related fitness is aerobic fitness.
Okay.
It also includes muscle fitness, which is, muscle strength and muscle endurance. And it also includes flexibility, because we have evidence that flexibility relates to connective tissue distensibility and vascular health. So those are your health-related components, along with body composition, which includes skeletal muscle mass as well as fat. Okay.
Now, you also specialize on what I saw in women's health, right? Women's health. Is there a difference between women and men when it comes to fitness and exercise?
Oh, yeah. There's a whole class in which I teach in women's health.
But it's not extra. But as far as fitness, yes.
I think the one thing, the take-home message with women and men, and there are differences which we know about, standard differences, but they both have the same ability to improve. One gender improves as much as the other. They both improve with training. They both respond to resistance training the same way. They both respond to aerobic training the same way. That's the take-home message. If I can get better, it doesn't matter where I start, women or whether I'm female or male, doesn't matter. It matters that I can make the adaptations necessary to improve my physical health and also mental health, because that physical health translates to mental health.
Absolutely. And that's so important in my practice as well, is when I see my patients who have a very balanced exercise program with fitness. And I use the word balance because it's not only just about homeostasis, what we call allostasis, it's actually balance itself, because as a neurologist, I see so many people falling. Actually, as neurologists, we see probably one of the highest admission rates of patients coming in are subsequent falls, because there's such an increase in blood thinners and patients falling that they end up having hemorrhages and so on. So I feel like the core strength exercise program with cardio and balance training, and just like you said, outlined in the beginning, is so important.
It's really important. And I think with respect to falls, the one piece that's missing is the practical piece. So yes, when we see an increase in falls that you noted, we have to look at bone density. We have to look at muscular strength. We can build upon those. But it's your ability to adapt your movements. In other words, it's basically related to sport. I would say people that participate in various different sports, they have to learn to adjust position, direction. This is where the falls come into play. They're not quick enough to make the adjustment. They don't have the reaction time. They're maybe not as agile, okay? And so it's a combination of these factors that are picked up in the sport that you're missing when you just, run in a straight line, or missing when you just do resistance training, you sit in a bench and you're lifting weights. The sport encompasses part of the risk for falls. That's why that is also important.
Right. And that's part, as a neurologist, we test proprioception.
Okay.
And when you lose your joint, proprioception is the ability for the listeners is there's certain nerve receptors that are designed from the peripheral nerves through the spinal cord through up to the brain that allow us to understand where our joints are in space without using our visual system. And I feel as we get older, specifically patients who have neuropathy or spinal stenosis or other conditions, they can really impair their ability to know where their joints are in space. And and I feel that the patients that do well, like you said, are the ones that have excellent balance with sport. And also when I test them and I lay them down, I can actually see the way they get up and using their core strength. I cannot tell you how many patients as we age, they cannot get up from a laying down position they have no glute or core strength. So
yeah. And I do think things like the big push and big participation rates of things like pickleball and a lot of these sports are wonderful for some of the older people that maybe can't move as much on a tennis court but can play on a pickleball court, and they get that practice in agility on on eye-hand reaction time, eye-foot reaction time, which does play a role in falls, which are very important. So, and in addition, there's a social aspect. So yes, they're all related.
They're all related, and that's important for. All right, so let's get into a little bit about resting heart rate and maximal heart rate and these target zones. So, just we're not going to talk about like the cardiovascular pathology of bradycardia, tachycardia, but just in general, like people want to know, well, you want to measure their heart rates. Is that an indicator of a resting heart rate when they work out and they're measuring their maximal heart rate? They want to burn fat. They're looking at their target zone related to heart rate. I just want to help you guide some of the listeners just about heart rate for now.
Okay. Well, I think, and one of the most common questions I get is, I have a high resting heart rate or I have a low resting heart rate. Right. Is that good? Sure. And it's good for everybody. It's bad for everybody. What it is, it's a measure of your sympathetic tone. That's basically it. If some people have greater, what we call vagal stimulation to the heart, so your resting heart rate will be lower. Some people have less vagal stimulation to the heart, so your heart rate would be higher. If we took out all the innervation to the heart, all the vagal nerve innervation, everybody would have a resting heart rate of 105. We're all below that, unless we're in resting tachycardia. We're all below that. And how much below that is just a measure of how much vagal tone you have. So, for example, men have more vagal tone than women. They tend to have a lower resting heart rates. That we know. We know that athletes who are aerobically trained, they have increased vagal tone. Their resting heart rates are below 50. It's not that there's anything wrong with them. It's a physiological response to their training. It's not that they have, quote, we have resting bradycardia. You do have resting bradycardia, but it's a physiological adaptation to their training. That's a good thing. It's not pathological. Right. If it's physiological, that's great.
Right.
It's more efficient.
Okay, so when we do exercise and get that to maximal heart rate, what is the?
It's a function of your sympathetic nervous system. So during exercise, your heart rate goes up, and it's strictly a function of sympathetic nerve stimulation. The parasympathetic nerve stimulation, which lowers your heart rate, is out. It's not a factor. So if you have a high sympathetic nervous system stimulation, your heart rate will be higher, except it's age-related.
Yes.
So we typically can guesstimate your maximum heart rate based on a formula. It's not complicated. It's 220 minus your age, okay? It's really accurate for younger people. So my 20-year-old college students, right on. Their predicted maximum heart rates match their exercise-related maximum heart rates. They're at about 200. As you get older, it gets off a little bit.
Now, do you feel that heart rate variability is a measurement for stress response with the parasympathetic and the sympathetic?
It shows the balance of the parasympathetic innervation along with the sympathetic innervation. It's a good measure. We use it in our laboratory, but there are a lot of other measures that we use that are really more closely related to what we consider your maximum aerobic capacity. There are other factors.
Okay, so I want to hear. So now we're this is so I want to hear this because it's so important to understand this. Is that what goes on in your lab as far as understanding your exercise fitness? Because a lot of people have wearables and all of these things that capture some data, which is not the same data that you get in your lab.
No.
Okay,
it's good.
It's good. What is it, the data that you get in the lab, and what are the measurements you're looking for cardiac? Or fitness.
For fitness,
yes.
Well, we have in our laboratory, of course, we have very sophisticated equipment that we can use where we put a person on a treadmill. If they're a cyclist, we put them on the bicycle. If they're a rower, we put them on the rowing machine. We just can't put them in the pool if they're a swimmer. That we can't do. But what we do is we try to match the exercise with the sport that the person participates in. So basically, we have what's called a metabolic cart. And in this cart, you have a mask on, and you have a headgear. But once you get started running, you're not thinking about it. We can hook you up, and we can look at how much oxygen you're consuming as I increase the incline on the treadmill, get it higher and higher and higher. And we look at your ability to consume more and more and more oxygen. There will come a point in time on the test, you're not doing any better. I raise the incline on the treadmill, your oxygen doesn't go up, and you're falling off the treadmill. We know that's your limit. That's what we call your maximum oxygen consumption, max VO2 for short. It's the best indicator of overall aerobic fitness.
Okay, so now that gets me into the exercise program where a lot of my patients ask me this is, let's say if they would have a running program. So some people, let's do running program. We have to get to running. Running, jogging. Are we running for distance? Are we running for speed? And then how about high intensity training, HIIT workouts? Again, combination. Oh, okay.
It depends what you want.
You want.
Okay. So if you want to get in the best aerobic condition as possible, it's the expression, no pain, no gain. You have to work intensity. You're going to have to increase that intensity. The more intensely you can work out, or the closer you can work out relative to your maximum heart rate, the higher the intensity, the better the aerobic fitness. And there's a way to gauge that. We look at something called anaerobic threshold. When you're getting to the point where you're starting to huff and puff, if you can start to work out at that level and start to sustain the workout more on that level, we will see better gains in your cardiovascular fitness. So in terms of fitness benefits, intensity is a factor. And HIIT, or high intensity interval training, is great for that. However, is it the best for calorie expenditure? We think if you can go longer, the best for calorie expenditure is maybe backing off on the intensity, slowing things down a little bit, and go longer. You'll burn more calories, and for weight reduction, that may be superior. So it depends, what's the primary focus here? Is it getting in great shape and running a marathon in a certain amount of time? Or is it loss of weight, loss of central adiposity? What would be the best for that? And distance is calorically determined. So, basically, the more you go, the longer you go, the more calories you burn.
I just love the fact that you just bring fitness into such a holistic way, and also individually based on what the person or athlete wants, what sport they're playing.
What's the goal?
What's the goal? Because the overall goal to me is health and longevity. It seems like all these different avenues point towards the same direction.
And that's why I would point someone toward the interval aerobic training. I think that's the research is showing it comes out great. In other words, when we say interval aerobic training, you go up at a high intensity for a certain amount of time, maybe 2 to 3 minutes, and then you go back down to just above average exercise level, but low intensity. Then you go back up again, and then you go down again. And you repeat that several times. That is the way all the athletes are training, because it helps your aerobic fitness, it helps caloric expenditure, and it also basically helps, I would say, fat distribution and body fat loss. It's very good. It's coming up very well for central fat loss. It's doing actually better than continuous exercise.
That's what I was going to ask you, because I think there's a point where an athlete wants to know how they get in that zone of that fat burning zone where they're not burning through muscle.
Yeah. Well, I think the zone would be working at a level close to what we call their anaerobic threshold. And this is hard to discuss without getting on a cart, but I can give you an idea how everybody can do it. The talk test. If you're exercising and you can't have a conversation with your buddy, you're at your anaerobic threshold. talk while you're exercising at a higher intensity. So when you're starting to huff and puff a little bit and the conversations get difficult, that's anaerobic threshold. It's really close. So we recommend the talk test. If you can leisurely talk to your friend while you're exercising, you're below that level. I don't know how much of a training effect you're going to get. You'll burn calories, you'll cover more distance, so it'll be good for weight loss. But in terms of the aerobic benefit, you got to make a little adjustment on the intensity. That's why we like interval training, because it's both. You go up, you go down. You go up, you go down. So you get a little bit of both. It's the combination. We call it periodization, where you're changing levels. And so that's a great way to do it, because within 20 to 30 minutes, you can get an effective workout. So I would say if you want to get at that level where you're getting a good benefit out of your exercise and you don't need to go into a lab to be tested, do the talk test. If you have difficulty talking, that's a good zone for you to start working out on.
And you brushed up on this a little bit as far as the program. So let's say someone's a triathlete and they cycle, right? They swim, right? And they run. That's how they don't go to the weight room as much. Do you think that they should balance it and hit the weights? Do you think the fitness level is sufficient versus endurance training as far as building muscle? Don't you think it should be a combination?
Yeah, well, the research pretty much is, we pretty much know the answer to that. The resistance training helps aerobic athletes. It does.
It does.
Yeah, it increases muscle mass. They become a little bit more efficient.
Okay.
It's easier for them to run at the faster pace because they have more muscle to support it. So it's beneficial for the aerobic athlete to do resistance training. The converse may not be the best. The converse meaning, is it beneficial for resistance athletes to do aerobic training? Not as much. It's good to build a good base of aerobic training, but we know that when you combine aerobic and fitness training and your resistance training, the resistance will go up and up and up for a while, and then it'll plateau out. You won't see many more gains because now you're starting to work different systems. The aerobic system entails a different set of substrates and enzymes than the muscular system. So you're training different things. They diverge. So it seems like you can do a combination of resistance and aerobic training, and that will help with your aerobic fitness. But after, I'm going to say from the research, about 6 weeks, if you do resistance and aerobic training, your muscular strength will start to basically plateau out. That's the difference. It's very interesting. There are systems with the aerobic training that inhibit the growth, the increase in muscle size and strength after a certain point. So you have to make a decision.
Right. And I still think the decision is balanced. I really do. I think it's bringing it in, because then your performance, I think, like you said, is actually going to get better in those sports.
Right. If you're a football player, what they'll do is establish a good aerobic base, but the strength and the power is so important that they'll focus on that during the season.
Now, how about my patients that are above the age of 65 and they are asking, I said, what kind of exercise? Because what I'm seeing is a high risk of, actually, I see more in men than women. Women get the more genetic form of, let's say, Alzheimer's. Men get it differently, I feel. I feel like men retire very early. Retire. And when they retire, they literally retire. They retire the brain and their exercise pattern.
Yeah.
And they really deteriorate physically. What kind of exercise can I help with my patients other than walking? Because walking, I think, is great. Besides walking, what exercises are safe or they can build some form of aerobic workout?
Okay. Well, I think there's a couple of things.
Yes.
We kind of recommend, again, a choice of certain types of exercise. So I would say for the men, aerobic exercise on a stationary bicycle ergometer, on a Precor, on an elliptical. These are excellent ways. You just increase the incline a little bit, and you don't have to stress your joints as much, but you get the workout. You get the intensity factor in. So for them, I would recommend some kind of higher intensity training where they stress the heart and the lungs and they improve their cardiovascular endurance a little bit. That's the base that I'm talking about, that everybody needs to have improve, I think, to a certain extent. Then after that, depending on what their needs are, what are their concerns, I think resistance training is helpful. I think, or exercises that combine. They have these circuit training programs where you go in a circuit and you don't really get a chance to rest, but you're doing a certain number of sit-ups, you're doing pull-ups, you're doing certain types of exercises where your body weight is the resistance factor, and you do a little bit of both.
Yes.
And so those types of programs where you have circuit training, where you can go through a couple of different exercises, you get the balance. It's in the program. And then you have the people, like you mentioned, pressure. I think like a yoga class now and then where you can relax, where you can stretch, that would help balance out the circuit training where you're kind of working, your heart rate doesn't get down too much and you're going from one station to the next. It's the good portion of that enhances cardiovascular endurance and strength because you have to use your body to do a lot of these exercises, and that's a lot of resistance. And then you focus on the flexibility with a yoga class or not even a class. Do stretching after you're done with your circuit training. Do some basic whole body stretches, poses, things like that.
This is great. I mean, this is whole body. This is a great program. So let's get a little bit into the mind and brain because my favorite subject. So awareness is so important because the brain, if it doesn't have the education, what you're doing, and doesn't have the knowledge of the programs that are downloaded, it's like turning on a computer with nothing, no software, no programs. It doesn't work. So the education really teaches people by understanding the physiology. Then you start to understand how you want to work out. Is this correct? Right?
Yes.
Okay. And then if that's the awareness part, once you build the awareness and education, then I get into the second part, which is then the building of habits. Because I mean, it's a fight for a lot of people, and it's not even a fight to work out. It's a fight actually in the workout phase, getting uncomfortable, pushing them to the max, right? Mm-hmm. Because then what happens is it's the beliefs that they have, the limitations that they have, the fears that they have that really don't allow them to get better. Is this correct?
Yes, I think it's
stronger.
It's a fear factor. It's also not feeling comfortable doing some of these things, especially in front of people or other people that may be better and more, well-adjusted to the exercise that they're doing or used to it. So at any rate, I think what the best thing is, or what the take-home message is I think that it's great to have a friend or two to work with. That's the first thing. And I think you should do it in an environment that's conducive and that's open to learning. Some people, probably the younger people, like to work more with a good music background. I find that helps them do it. They put on their music and their Spotify and they get everything. They get everything in. With older people, I feel they need to be with others that are in the same position as them, that are learning and wanting to improve upon their fitness. So there's two ways to look at this. It's a buddy system. If you have a friend or a colleague that you could work out with and go to a certain place to work out with, or do it together on the outside, like jogging or playing pickleball or tennis, that works well too. So what I think is do what's available to you, and that you do something that you feel comfortable with. And that may be just picking the right instructor that goes with the flow and is better at feeling the pace of the people in the class. Or it may be just working with a friend, but who wants to start exercising or hire a trainer or someone to help them along so that they can get into a position where they feel comfortable and can then eventually exercise on their own.
Well, that's the part of the habit training, is that you have a cue, and then you have the routine action behavior, and then you have the reward. So you have the action is going to be the exercise, and the reinforcement reward is something like music or the social integration feeling of belonging, something that. So the way I built an exercise program for me and running. And I first noticed it is when I started to run very early in the morning, and I would run. And I had a trainer at the time, and I challenged him that I would run a full month, even taking call. I would run a full month every day, right? And the first few days, obviously, it was terrible, and it was always like a 3-4 mile run. And what got me, and I didn't notice until later, is he asked me to send him a photo every time I accomplished the run. And I was excited that I would go 5, then I would go 6, I would go 21, I would go 25, I would go 27, and then the little checkbox saying, you did it, awesome, way to go. That's how I reinforce reward, to the point now that I focus on exercising is getting myself there on the reward of how I feel, how my mood is during the day, how I work so smoothly during the day, how I feel like I accomplished it, as opposed to at the end of the day, after work, feeling tired and motivating myself, finding every way possible. I built a routine and habit on that reward. So I feel like that's part of it, is that you got to add those wins, those rewards, and you have to somewhat enjoy the process, and you really want to enjoy the workout and the exercise program.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Is the reward, how much of the reward you feel after the endorphins have been released, and serotonin, and all of the beneficial, what we call neurotransmitters?
Right, sure.
The reward after, for the rest of the day, does that motivate you in the morning? I got to go out and do this because I know I'm going to benefit the rest of the day and after.
Yes, and that's exactly what I visualize. I visualize shutting the gym door with a towel and a water bottle, and the feeling afterwards. That's the one visualization that I have, and that's the feeling that I have. That's that's the checkbox. It's like I did it,
right?
And that gets me going, and that makes me feel good. So that's really got me into understanding even habits even more, because that's what social media is, with these little likes and things. That's how we're programmed. Is the likes, is the wins, it's the feeling good, it's doing something good for yourself. Because I feel exercise is one of those pillars that is needed, is a must for longevity. But you got to do it where you enjoy it and you get the rewards. And the process is somewhat not enjoyable at times, but the failure, and that's the thing is that I teach, is that if you're in the gym and you don't fail, I've said this many, many times, if you walk out and you don't do your VO2 max, you don't fail, then you don't win. You learn from your failures. You don't learn from your wins. You learn from your failures.
Yes.
Your fibers, right?
Yes.
Muscle fibers.
Right.
Yes.
Well, I'm hoping that
Yes.
some of the toughness that you feel during the program that you described, the discomfort, I hope that the feeling that you get afterward overrides some of the tough parts of during the exercise that you feel.
Of course. I mean, we laugh. There's this Bulgarian splits that they put me through, and even the word Bulgarian gets me going that I won't go to that country. But I enjoy it afterwards, that's for sure. All right. So one of the other factors that I wanted to ask you about is endurance versus power. When you hit the weight room, for instance, depending on the sport, I know you're going to say that, is it a combination that you want to do?
Yes.
High sets, low reps?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. It's a decision, but I think we have some answers for that. So basically, if you're an athlete, it's good to have maximum strength. But if you can't generate the strength fast enough to be good at your position, then it's not so great. So, for example, we had to work with a number of football players. they were like 275, all muscle, 300. They had a lot of strength, no question, but they couldn't generate that maximum strength fast enough. So for an offensive lineman, if he can't get to the quarterback fast enough, the quarterback's releasing the ball's thrown down the field. The idea is to generate the strength faster. That's power. So it's work over time. So this is a different type of workout. But when you work out for power, if you don't have a good strength background, it's going to influence your power. So we work it in phases, which we call periodization. So we have basically a hypertrophy phase where we want to increase our mass. So we work on a certain type of program to just increase mass, which means you have to do reps, but you have to do them fairly quickly, okay? For mass, it's time under tension. So the more work you can do at a fairly good clip, the more mass you build. That's what we call hypertrophy. You get bigger. Those are your bodybuilders. They increase their size, and they do more reps. Then we have the people that work more for power and strength, combination of both. They got to work a little bit more quickly, and they have to lift a little bit heavier weight. So they can't do as many reps. They back off the reps, and they increase the weight. So they get stronger, and they get efficient. Their rate of force development is really good because we have them working at a fast clip. So they do that for a while. And then the last phase is just all-out power. As quickly as possible, 1 or 2 maximum lifts. So we have different phases. We have what we call the hypertrophy phase, which is the mass phase. The strength phase, which is basically getting stronger, heavier weights. And then we have the power phase. So this is what we do for athletes. For the general population, we can kind of tie it together. And it's really done very nicely in most programs where you do around 8 to 10 repetitions, okay, based upon the maximum weight you can lift. You can do, what can you lift 8 to 10 times, and then you're done. That's a good way of doing it. And then the question is, can you do it a little bit more quickly? So you kind of work at a moderate, like you don't do it so slow. You do it at a moderate pace. That helps what we call rate of force development. It helps economy. That's what's translated to aerobic performance, that economy. So basically, the 8 to 10 repetition, the standard going through different muscles, okay, in a circuit room where you do upper body, lower body, abdominal, at about this 8 to 10 repetitions works great. And you work at a fairly moderate speed. I'm going to say moderate speed. And then the other thing that you can do when you go through these repetitions and you may work at a moderate speed, you just have to make sure you get the balance and you go through the full range of motion. So there's a lot of, I call them little cheating going on in the weight room.
Sure.
They don't go through their maximum range of motion. And if they do, they go through the maximum range of motion, they're weaker at the beginning of the range of motion due to biomechanics, what we call moment arm length in our language. And it's harder for them to get to the middle of the range where they get stronger naturally. So they don't go through the full range. They just go like in the middle where they're the strongest. That's not good. We need them to go through the full range of motion. Otherwise, they tighten up and it's not good for their flexibility. So that's very common problem. I see it a lot in the gym where they fail to go through the range of motion because it's hard to go all the way back down. Sure. You can't lift the weight again. Sure. So they cut it short. Do it right. Start right. Go through the full range of motion. Do a weight that you can lift about 8 to 10 times. And we now know the optimal for building strength is about 4 sets.
4 sets.
Yeah, it's the optimal. 3 sets is good. That's fine. 5 sets is good, or even better. But the optimal, I would say, is 4 sets for building size and strength. We pretty much know it now.
Is there a particular sport, I know you've asked this question, that you feel has the longest predictive of longevity and health?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
we've looked at marathon runners, like there have been autopsies of great marathon runners. One of them died of cancer. And we did read the data, and, the size of his coronary arteries, I don't know if you know, the size of the coronary artery is about a strand of spaghetti.
Sure.
And this gentleman had coronary arteries the size of like it was like 4 times the size of anybody else. So the coronary arteries were unbelievable. They were so much bigger than any other person. So that person basically could have lived forever, no heart problems. Person had cancer. And this was a trained, a fabulous marathon runner. So yes, we think certain sports, I would say I'm leaning toward the aerobic athletes because you increase perfusion, blood supplies, the enzymes, the mitochondria, which is the energy haven of the muscle cells. So of course it's aerobic, but I'm going to say it's probably now not just one. It's probably, yes, definitely the aerobic side of things, but maybe some of the sports that also demand some strength and maybe some movement. And also maybe some brain work where you're like a chess match. What I would say, I'll tell you what the data says, and I'll tell you what I say the best sport is probably tennis.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, tennis. Now, if you could do it, orthopedically, it's challenging after a certain age because you're running. It's got everything.
It's got everything.
It's got the agility. It's got the strength. It's got the flexibility, and it's got the mind work. You're trying to outsmart your opponent. It's a chess match. So
my favorite athlete is Novak Djokovic. And the reason why is because he did so many different things, and he really started to pay the most attention to his mind-brain health and the way he uses his mind tactics and the ability to, during pressure situations, actually.
He's the best.
And he does mindfulness. And then which we'll get into nutrition, he changed his diet. He found that he was gluten sensitive.
Right.
Then he worked on his flexibility. He's extremely flexible. He's powerful. And he really hit all of those pillars of health that really I strive and to be someone like a Djokovic as far as an athlete. And also his body habits. I mean, so I just feel that he's one of the top or the athletes all the way through.
He's a thoroughbred, there's no question.
Let me ask you about yourself. You play tennis?
Yes.
I figured. And how did you get into this? Because exercise now, correct me if I'm wrong, is a lot more hip and cool than it was, right?
Yes.
And you've stuck through it, and you are like a pioneer as far as through the whole course of it. And overall, tell me the pathway and as far as what has changed.
Well, I could tell you a little bit about it. Basically, it's a little unique in my position, but for me, I grew up with 2 parents that loved sports. Believe it or not, my mom was a swimmer. And my dad played basketball. He played volleyball. He played everything. But at any rate, the key for me is I did pretty well in sports in school. So I received a lot of positive feedback. I was the national racquetball champion. I had won in the nationals. And basically, I remember going to college. This was City College of New York. And I saw there was a racquetball tournament, and I said, can I enter? And they told me I couldn't because it was only men entered. This is back in the 70s. And I said, well, yeah, but I'm not a man, but I can play. I'm pretty good. He goes, no, you can't. You have to be a man. We can't have girls in the sport. I said, well, I think I can beat probably most of the men playing in this sport. And he insisted no. And I said, no, that's not acceptable. I want to play. I should be able to play. He didn't know what to do. He really never faced this problem. He let me play. And basically, I got into the finals. I lost in the finals. And there was a whole article in the Daily News about it because a woman had never been allowed to enter in a man's tournament at that time. And so the sports aspect in my family, I have 2 parents that were into sports. It was a natural. And I guess I got a lot of positive feedback from that. So I continued. The only problem was, well, I would have loved to play tennis, but we grew up, we didn't have a lot of money, and we couldn't afford it. At that time, it wasn't as open as it is now. If you didn't have money, you couldn't play tennis. So I went into paddleball and racquetball, and I excelled in that. I wish back then it was as open as it is now, I would have been playing tennis.
Racket sports.
Yeah, racket sports. So let's get back to our question.
Yes.
I think the best sport is the sport that taxes your mind as well as your body. And it also has to do with maneuvering. Like tennis or pickleball, there's flexibility, there's strength, there's a mental aspect. To me, that's the best sport.
It's competitive.
It's competitive. Now, what does the research say?
Yeah.
The research comes up highest on the joggers, on the running.
On the running.
Because they haven't really investigated tennis. I think if they looked at the tennis players' longevity, I don't know how many of them get Alzheimer's. I don't know how much they follow these tennis players, but I think they would be up there in longevity. I really do. They just look at sports like cycling or running. They have the most evidence, the most data on it. So the joggers come out the best.
All right, so we're going to get into nutrition. There's so much to talk about nutrition. I had a whole podcast on nutrition. So what is your role in nutrition? Because again, it's the same pillars: exercise, sleep, and nutrition. You can't have. Yeah, it's all the same. It's all together. That's why the body, brain, and mind. It's one. It's absolutely one. So what? Talk to me about nutrition. As far as what do you think is the most important that you can teach our audience about nutrition?
They're inextricably related, no question, nutrition and exercise. They go hand in hand.
Oh, yeah.
And if you're going to do one, you might as well do the other. So that's the first thing. I focus the most on what's easiest to change.
Okay.
And basically what's easiest is to go from away from the processed foods to the unprocessed foods. So whole grains, natural ingredients, of course, fruits and vegetables are the best, I would say. And I would focus on making the majority of the meal really the vegetables and the fruits. And then you have your whole grains in there and protein. We overconsume protein as a nation. We're way too high on protein. We don't need as much as we take in. I would say you do need more. Yeah, for sports, you're going to need a certain amount, a little bit more protein, but we know the amount. We already know that if you're a jogger, it's about 1 gram of protein per kg of body weight. We already know for non-jogger, for sedentary persons, 0.8 of a gram. We have all that data. I would say for most athletes, it's from 1 to 1.5 grams of protein per kg of body weight. We pretty much know that, but it's the quality, what you're eating. This is what bothers me. The labels are very deceptive.
Oh, yeah.
And you have to know what you're reading.
Right.
And you have to know a little bit of the biochemistry, the background.
Yes.
Do you know what an omega-3 is or omega-6 and things like that? Do you know what a whole grain protein is versus refined grains?
It's back to education.
It's back to education.
And it's back to habits.
It's the habits. So I would say one thing, we overconsume protein a little bit, and we definitely overconsume sugar a lot more.
That was my next point, is that as a neurologist and a physician, right, what do we see the most? And it's all three together. It's stress, sugar, inflammation, and obviously cortisol, sugar, inflammation. It's all part of the same thing. That's what it is. And inflammation without exercise, obviously, the dietary nutrition is extremely important as well.
Yeah.
Something. Yeah.
Yeah. No, there's no question.
That leads to disease.
What?
That leads to disease.
Yes.
They're starting to realize now that Alzheimer's is an inflammatory condition. So
as is heart disease, as is many diseases.
All the diseases.
Yeah.
And so stroke, inflammatory condition.
Right. So
migraine, actually an inflammatory condition.
Right.
These are all inflammatory conditions.
Yeah.
And how do you put inflammation down is all of these things we're talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
So no, there's no question. So basically you start with the easiest and then you proceed ahead, which is exactly what I did. I am vegan. I'm very comfortable eating. I've always liked vegetables, salads, fruits. It's natural for me. The vegan field has become so much better. It doesn't taste like cardboard anymore. It actually tastes quite good.
Enjoy the food.
Yeah, I enjoy that's the first thing. I didn't enjoy it initially. As I start to enjoy it, as I start to learn a little bit more about flavoring and spices and things like that, the food's delicious. And in certain places, I think it's almost better than a regular food. So that's me, but because as I learned, I've made an adjustment that works for me. But I would say if you can just stay away from the refined foods, if you have something, you're buying a product, and there's a list of ingredients that's that long, that's like too long.
Too long.
The simpler, the better.
That's right.
That's my word. A couple of things, and that's it. Don't add salt, don't add sugar, just plain, and you can flavor it yourself. And that's what I recommend. Yes, of course, the Mediterranean diet is if you follow it for...
Of course, for a mind diet, absolutely.
Yeah, mind diet, yes. But just eat whole foods, less processed. There's so much processing here. So we lose so much of the vitamins and the nutrients. The simpler, the better.
The fuel. It just has to agree with you. You have to feel good about it. You have to feel good after you eat. There's so much to talk about in this.
Yeah. Yep. I could tell you one thing with my program with kids. I give them different...
Okay, so let's talk about your program.
Yeah, I have...
Okay, so let's talk about the two programs. So the THINK program.
It stands for Translational Health and Nutrition and Kinesiology. And I started it for kids because the kids do the best. The kids don't have their habits ingrained, and I can change them.
Yes.
And they're like sponges. They absorb the information, and my results are the best with the kids. Yeah. So that's the program I started. However, you have to educate them. They have no idea. You talk about plant-based items, they think you're from Mars. You have to educate them and show them, it's in the supermarkets. It's like half the milks you see are plant-based milks. Did you even notice? And they do notice. So what I do is I give them different foods. I have plant-based milks, I have regular milks, I have plant-based yogurts, regular yogurts. Most of the time, they can't tell the difference. They don't know which is which. They choose, one likes the plant-based, one likes the regular, the one with dairy. The other one likes a different plant-based, another one likes a different dairy. It's all over the place. They need to try and see what they like best and stick with it.
And the second program is?
Oh, the second program is the Vascular Health Project.
Okay.
Right now it's the Women's Vascular Health Project, and we're going to the men. And the Vascular Health Project is a project where we're using this sophisticated equipment. It's called the SphygmoCor. Non-invasively, we can go in and look at the cardiac pulse and look at the degree of stiffness or compliancy of your vessels. And this is really closely related to heart disease. So we're looking at men, and we did men and women, looking at gender differences. Now we're focusing on women, and we see the age differences. And there's no question, as women get older, as men get older, the arteries get stiffer.
Sure.
But we're looking at other things. What does fitness have to do with it?
Yes.
What does body composition have to do with it? And what does diet have to do with it?
Sure.
So we're measuring all three, and it's very interesting what we're getting. I could tell you the preliminary results because we're still recruiting people.
Yes.
Number one, we definitely see the age difference. We also know there's race differences, so we're looking at that. So we've looked at white, black, Hispanic, and Asian women, and we're already seeing race differences in vascular health. But more important is we're seeing some of the physical differences. Body composition. Now, it's not just body composition. It's where things are located. The intra-abdominal, the internal fat, thus far, is the biggest predictor and the best predictor of vascular risk.
You're talking about visceral
adipose tissue.
Okay.
Okay, intra-abdominal visceral adipose tissue.
Okay.
Okay, that's the best predictor. However, we're finding out that in certain ages, the more muscle mass you have, that's protective against heart disease.
Okay, Lee. Yes.
So we're finding this all out. We have all these women thus far, and we're looking for more women. We have the data that it's non-invasive, and then we're looking at diet. And now is where we're starting to see it looks like saturated fat is a factor in affecting vascular compliancy. Why are we not surprised, right? So we're starting to put this all together,
Yes,
and basically come up with a vascular health profile for these women. So we look at them physically, and by the way, aerobic fitness is basically a good predictor of vascular health. Yes. That came up high.
Sure.
So we're seeing body composition, just what you're talking about. We're seeing fitness levels, aerobic fitness, and we're starting to see diet are all playing a role in predicting vascular health and compliancy, and ultimately cardiac.
I see it, and I see it clinically. When the patients come in with, unfortunately, strokes, I can, you can tell, by a lot of risk factors and how much, I don't really measure BMI, but as far as the obesity,
BMI is not a
it's
good
not an indicator.
No,
it's obesity because that's what the markers are as far as medications and things like the BMI.
But I will say that the big step now is, can we start, let's say, with your patients or people who are older on the intervention? What is the best intervention for them? What can we do? We finally know the factors. What types of exercise is best for reducing visceral adipose tissue? And we're starting to see that it's probably interval training. It's high and low. So we're getting to that. But yes, that's why we're doing this project.
I want to do sprints when we're done here.
Up and down. Well, hopefully, it seems you're intrinsically motivated.
So, to finish up, how many students have you taught?
How many students?
Roughly.
Over the years, I've been teaching for 43 years.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
and I'm sure all the athletes and the football players have taken your class. I'm sure.
I've seen a lot of athletes. I've seen several gold medalists. We've tested them.
And you've tested them.
We've tested them in our lab. So it's we've seen them all. It really is amazing to see some of the gifted athletes that we've done. They'll go and go and go on a stress test. If I don't stop them, they'll fall on the treadmill. I have to stop them and bring them down. They just
stop them.
Mentally.
So they're a flow state. They know how to get into the flow state.
I couldn't believe it. I knew that I had to stop them because he'd fall down on the treadmill if I didn't stop him.
So with all these years can you give us a little bit of wisdom? What would you, just a little bit of a thought before we close out as far as wisdom for my audience?
Okay. I would say the wisdom is, it's never too late to start.
Love it.
Start now.
Yes.
The other thing, if you don't do much, get a dog, walk the dog, get started walking. That's the best thing, because you have to get out at night, walk them. You have to get out in the morning. It makes you exercise. It really does. It makes you get started. Then, once you feel comfortable, once you feel good about walking, let's move on. Then we go get a sport. Try pickleball. Try anything. Get into the sports. And then if you're really into it and you see how much it helps, then you don't need me anymore. You'll hit the weight room. You'll start doing what you're doing and exercising and jogging and seeing what time works for you as long as you can get it in.
Dr. Arlette, your energy is amazing. And I think I'm going to take your class. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I really appreciate it.
You're quite welcome. Oh, my pleasure. It was fun.